win out and win his next 10 games to get in that 35 win range where he would be in the discussion, and he'd have to continue playing at this level. I mean, I'm not going to put it past him because I feel like he has the ability to do that, but when you've got guys like Rinne and Vasilevsky who are already at such a head start. I mean, Vasilevsky's 1 win away from 40, and Rinne's 4 wins away from 40. It's almost too much ground to make up at this point.
So I got to ask you, I want you to kind of think on your feet here real quick. So since February 9th, when Gibby came back, how many games is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games, including tonight. What do you think his lowest save percentage was?
Oh, man. I'm trying to remember I feel like he hasn't had a bad game in that period because this is what I think his 6th straight win. So then 2 games before that. I'm going to say his lowest is probably like 9-14. I feel like he's been that good.
It was that horrible, horrible game in Detroit. His save percentage was 0.875.
Okay.
That was his worst. But after that, his lowest is 9.25, and that was against Chicago. The rest of the time, he's got shutout, 9.44, 9.47, 9.55, 9.49, 9.38. Unreal.
What a time to turn it on, really.
Dude, he's killing it.
And that's what they need. I mean, at this point, I mean, Michael said here Gibby was amazing tonight, but how many times have we said that this season where we've come out of a game and said, really, the only reason the Ducks held on is because of the play of John Gibson and even at times the play of Ryan Miller. And I guess it's not something you always want to rely on. You really don't want to always rely on your goaltending because it's not always going to be there. And the Ducks are going to have to do something to fix their woes in the third period where they kind of just get caved in as of late. So that's something they have to fix, but it really doesn't look like John Gibson is slowing down anytime soon.
You got to give props to the captain, too, man. 9 points in 3 games. Rakell with 6 goals in his last 4 games. So Gibby's doing the load in the third period and saving their butts. But, I mean, the offense has been there for the Getzlaf line, which has been great. But, yeah, that's all I got to say about Gibby, man. He's been a beast since he's been back.
Yeah. Looking at the chat again, we had Connor say the shutdown line is looking a lot better this week. We brought it up, I was going to say a bit, but we actually brought it up a lot on the last show. So we can touch on it again here and how they've looked better. And obviously that game against Chicago was probably their best game of the season. And I think they kind of followed it up with, not a headlining game like the last one, but I think they had a strong game. I feel like they did a pretty decent job of, again, I'd have to check who they were paired against, but I would assume it was probably either Backstrom and Ovechkin or Kuznetsov, Vrana, and Oshie. It was one of those 2 lines.
No, it's true. They played a decent game. I felt like none of them stood out tonight. They didn't generate a ton of chances. I felt like in Chicago or against Chicago, they obviously did with Cogliano having breakaways and Kessler being involved in the play and Silverberg getting a goal or 2. Definitely wasn't one of those kinds of games. They were not as noticeable. But if I were to judge it based off the first 2 periods, I'm sure they played a fine game. I have to go back and break down the stats in between. And I know you and I are both analytics guys. We don't like to get too dirty into those stats on the show. But that third period, it's just hard to judge overall when looking at the stats just straight on because that third period, I believe our favorite word this show is caved in. And everybody was part of that.
My favorite word pretty much over the last month for the Ducks because it's kind of a trend now. I've actually got the numbers up here. So Kessler played primarily against Ovechkin, Backstrom, and Wilson, which I guess makes sense. Is they
That's
usually
a tough go.
Pair him. Yeah, and again, I mean, we really don't know. It doesn't break it down by period. So when you look at the numbers just based on the entire game, it doesn't look good. 35 Corsi for percentage against Ovechkin, 37 against Backstrom and Wilson. So it's not a good outlook of how they played. But when you actually just take an eye test and look at the game, for the first 2 periods, you really didn't see a ton of Ovechkin and Backstrom. And really, I mean, you're not going to see a ton from Wilson unless Ovechkin and Backstrom are getting things going for him. And I'm not going to contribute to that 100% to the play of Ryan Kessler and that line, but I think they definitely played a role in making things frustrating for Ovechkin in this game.
Yeah, and you can say whatever you want about players and all, but I mean, you're talking about probably the best goal scorer in the history of the game, or if not just his generation with Ovechkin. He's going to get his looks. unless he's having a horrible game of all horrible games, he's going to get looks every night. I mean, there's a reason why he leads the league in scoring. So, I mean, you can beat on our checking line all you want, but I mean, Ovechkin beats on everybody's checking line whenever he wants, every game he plays. So, I mean, like you said, the eye test, I felt like they looked all right. I thought they had a decent game.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to get off topic here, but this is something that's been on my mind, especially because of how well he played tonight. And it's not Ducks related, so I'm not going to spend too long on it, but it's kind of burning a hole in my head.
We do it every show. We do it every show. We go on some little tangent about somebody else not on Anaheim.
So Patrick Laine had a hat trick tonight. So he's up to 38 goals. That puts him at, what would that be, 74 goals in 138 games. He's still 19. And they were looking at how I think he's now passed Sidney Crosby for most goals as a teenager in the last, I believe, since the 90s. There's a few guys in front of him, not many, and the guys who are in front of him are some pretty big names like Gretzky and Dale Horachek, among others.
Yeah, but they played in the video game hockey age.
Yes, exactly. So looking at, I mean, it's hard to project the future and everything, and that has a lot to do with the team you're playing on, but do you think Patrick Laine is going to be a better goal scorer than Alex Ovechkin?
It's a tall order, man.
Yeah.
That's a real tall order. I mean, Ovi had, I want to say, 100 points his first season.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But even back then, they were scoring, a lot of guys were scoring over 50 goals. Maybe not a lot, but more than you see now. So, I mean, we talk about air adjusting when we go way back, but even back when Ovi started, I feel like goal scoring was at a little bit higher rate than it is now. And it's definitely too early to really say.
It is, but I mean, just based on what his output is right now, and he's on a really good team. Surprisingly, I don't think anyone expected the Jets to be as good as they are, and he's got great line mates too. Yeah. He's definitely a great player. That's just such a tall order. Ovi's at 598 right now for his career, and he's supposed to be regressing, and he's leading the NHL in goals. In an era where scoring has come down a little bit. So I think Laine is going to be an elite scorer. I just don't see him putting up the monster numbers that Ovechkin has. But I could be wrong. I mean, easily wrong, obviously.
Yeah, and for a last note on this, we talk about players going on a tear. I'm just going to add it up real quick here, but just looking at my phone here and the amount of goals Patrick Laine has over the last, I think it's 10 or so games here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Over his last 9 games, he's had a goal in every one but one. And he has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13 goals in his last 9 games.
He's killing it.
6 assists. So if you're going to turn it on at any point, it's now. And the goal scoring is just insane. Even in his last 5 games, he has 9 goals. So he's scoring 2 goals per game, which is insane. But anyway, we're going to get away from Patrick Laine. It was just kind of burning a hole in my head, especially with the fact that he's 38.
I get it.
So.
Especially when we talk about Rakell, and we're all screaming for joy. Rakell's got 6 goals in 4 games, and you bring up those stats about Laine, and it makes everybody who's a Ducks fan head explode. I didn't even realize, and I know Laine, and I watch him play, and I just didn't realize he had that much of an output as of late. But those are insane numbers.
Yeah, and so getting back to the chat, because I don't want to get too far away from it. So Jacob said, Gibby was great, but I'll be honest, I didn't feel there were really any danger. Maybe there are some high danger chances I missed. So I kind of agree. I don't think there was a lot of high danger chances that the Capitals had, and if you look at their numbers, 5-on-5, they had 13 high danger chances for, so there wasn't a ton. But I feel like when Gibby was called upon, especially the one that comes to mind is when Burakovsky was left alone in the slot, and Gibby gets a shoulder, I believe it was, on that shot. I mean, he was good when he was called upon. There wasn't any highlight reel saves that we're used to seeing from Gibson, but it was just really strong, solid play throughout the game, and that's almost just as good as making 1 or 2 highlight reel saves and coming out of it with a win, or making 36 saves in a strong effort where you really didn't look like you had to do much. I mean, we consistently see that from Carey Price, where he'll face 40 shots and look like it was an easy night because of just how well he played and how strong he was in the net.
I felt like that the rebounds were cleaned up. I felt like that they didn't get a ton of chances to bang away at the puck in front of Gibby, which I felt like helped. There wasn't a bunch of net mouth scrambles in front of Gibson, and he had to make saves. And I know the Caps kind of missed some chances, as we said with Ovi, but Gibby was strong. But I would kind of lean on the side of what you guys are saying too, that it didn't seem like it was these crazy chances that he had to blocker aside or glove aside.
Yeah, I think he had a strong game without having to make the highlight reel saves we're used to seeing from him. Last question.
But still all the praise to him, because he did face an onslaught in the third period. Not taking anything away from his game. We just praised him. I'm not saying that, but
we're just kind of used to seeing a highlight reel or two from John Gibson.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of nice to see him come out with the shutout in a game where he didn't really have to do that. Just because, I think, like you said, the rebounds were kind of controlled in this game. He didn't give up a lot of good chances, and the best chances that the Capitals had, he either saved or you have the Karlsson one where it ended up hitting the post. So I think it was a strong effort really all around. It wasn't his best game of the season, but you can't really say it was a bad game considering he had a shutout, right? So I'm not going to be too hard on him. But Mr. Zuni had the last question of the chat. I guess something messed up with the chat because it's asked 4 times. So he says, what is the status of Patrick Eaves, and do you think he'll come back this year?
Well, they said he's going to be practicing with the team.
Yeah.
That tells me, just based off of the history of when players come back, that they're just going to see if he's ready.
Yeah.
I'm sure his conditioning, based on his illness, is probably not where it was when he was prepping for the season back in training camp and when he saw the early parts of the season. But I think he's going to give it a go, and that's where Bob Murray and Randy Carlyle are going to have to make a decision. And Eaves himself, if he feels good. I mean, because the Ducks are going to obviously put his health in front of everything else, and I would hope that Eaves would do the same. Obviously, he wants to come back and play for the team. I don't really, and I guess it's kind of a cheesy way out, but I don't really want to take a guess on if a guy's healthy enough to come back and play, because I feel like this injury is not something that we can just look at from a standpoint of it's a broken bone, there's screws in it, or it's just got to heal. Yeah. He's got a shoulder injury. This is an illness that's going to affect him for however long it does. And if he feels good enough to come back, sure. But I would venture to guess that things are looking up for him, considering he's coming back and practicing with Anaheim.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you. I don't want to get into the discussion of when or if he's going to come back this season because of the uniqueness of the injury and the illness. You just really don't know. And yeah, I mean, it's a cop-out answer. I don't know, so I'm not going to really get into a really in-depth discussion. It's nice to see he's back practicing, but I believe, like you said, it's kind of just testing to see where he's at. They said that, I think Bob Murray said that he will probably be back next season, which I guess is a good sign because that means things are trending in the right direction. But as for this season, I feel like he probably doesn't get in for the regular season. If he does, it would be for the last few games to prepare for the playoffs. But in my opinion, just looking at how the situation is developing, I just feel like he probably doesn't play at all this season, and they kind of just rest him and make sure he's 100% healthy and ready to go for the start of next season.
Where would you slot him in?
Yeah, that's a tough thing because we've talked about how even next year, if the Ducks were looking to bring in players, that top 9 is kind of just solidified. There's not really any room to move guys out. I feel like the only guy you probably move down is Nick Ritchie. I would have done that. Or do you put
him up there on the top line and move Perry down?
Yeah, like I wouldn't have split up that line a week ago when they were playing well. But yeah, I think it's tough with Perry because he has a game or two where he looks great, and then he has a game where he kind of disappears for a bit, and then he comes back and plays well. And I think a lot of that is being able to play with Ryan Getzlaf.
I was just going to say he relies a lot on our captain.
Yeah, but I think Patrick Eaves kind of has that spot with Ryan Getzlaf based on their chemistry last season. And I feel like he kind of just fits on that line with Rakell and Getzlaf because Rakell's playing on the left wing, Getzlaf's playing center, Eaves fits in right on that right wing, and then you can move Perry down maybe to the Henrique and Cash line to give that maybe they'll spark him and his offense down on that line because it's a little bit more of an energy line, and I feel like they're going to do a lot of the work for checking for Perry, and then he can kind of just do what he does best, and maybe he'll benefit from being on the line like that. But it's all speculation right now. I mean, we don't know if he's going to come back, but I feel like that's where he would slot in if Eaves was to come back, even next season.
Yeah, so we just hope the best for him and his health, and that he'll be back at some point. We're just not sure. So, we got any more